This is We All Be News and Radio.
Ron Hurd, get up out of bed. Let's go. Let's go. Ron Hurd. That's the word. Get out of bed. Give me a jingle. My number 051. Get out of bed. Let's go. Don't be afraid. This is Herb Smith calling you. Herb Smith. All right, I know you're famous and all that kind of stuff, but let's go. Get out of bed.
Dr. Umoja, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, great. Well, we all be it's an honor to have on historian extraordinaire, the chair of the Black Studies Department, or African American Studies Department at Georgia State University, and also the recipient of the 2013 We All Be Artivist of the Year Award, the one and only Dr. Akinyele Umoja. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Brother Hurd. How are you doing?
I'm good. I woke up this morning, so I'm here. I'm ready to put this
morning.
Work.
Your right mind, proper exercise,
right
your length.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry to be talking to you on unfortunate circumstances with the passing of your dear friend, Brother Chokwe Lumumba, who was also the mayor-elect or the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, who won by overwhelmingly landslide of 90% to become mayor.
I think it was 80-something%. I can't remember.
86. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do want to get your take on the whole thing. Like, who was Chokwe Lumumba in your own words? How would you describe him?
Well, Chokwe Lumumba, I think, was, I would say, is a son of our people, one of the finest sons of our people, one of the finest sons of humanity. He was born in 1947 in Detroit, Michigan. He was his two parents, working class parents, and parents who, when he was a young man, had him go door to door to raise money. Even though they were living in Detroit, they were raising money for the movement in Mississippi, or groups like Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and other groups of that nature. Chokwe went to college. He was a very gifted athlete, very intelligent student. He went to Kalamazoo College, where he played football and basketball. And then at Kalamazoo, in 1968, it was the period of time when Martin Luther King was assassinated. And so he went back home to Detroit and began to get involved in the movement. And he joined this group, the Republic of New Africa, the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa, who in 1968 formed and decided the black people didn't have true equality inside the United States. And they wanted to create a government and a nation for black people, where black people would have, our children would be able to fulfill their highest potential, and we would be able to organize a system that would be to our benefit, unlike the system that we have today, where people are unemployed, where people are losing their houses, where we have in this country even today, in 2012, 313 of our people were killed by police vigilantes and security guards. And as you see in the case of Trayvon, and Tracy Jordan Davis, that oftentimes, even when it's clear that someone's guilty of killing our people, then they're still acquitted. And so the Republic of New Africa formed to have a government and a society where black people will have full potential to fulfill their lives. He joined that organization and became a part of it. He first went with that organization in Mississippi in 1971. So the Republic of New Africa was attempting to purchase some land, and they were going to have a celebration on that land in Bolton, Mississippi. And when they were getting ready to leave from where they were staying there to go on the land, they were surrounded by police and Ku Klux Klan barricade. And Chokwe was one of the people who led the group out. And he was one of the people, one of the key people on security that day. And I guess seeing that determined group of black people, the Klan and the police opened their barricade, they were able to celebrate the land they were attempting to acquire at that time. Thus, the slogan "Free the Land" comes from that particular day. In March of 1971, later on that year, some members of that group were attacked by the FBI and Jackson police. They came to their residence, and this was in Jackson. They came to their residence like 5 in the morning. They gave them 85 seconds before to wake up at 5 in the morning to come out the house. When they didn't come out the house, there was fire. It's disputed whether it was tear gas or bullets fired in the house, but the people inside the house returned the fire. There was a gun battle that ensued, and there was a Jackson police officer who was killed, and one that was another was wounded, and FBI wounded, and that started the case of the Republic of New Africa 11. Chokwe returned to Mississippi during that time to help fight for the Republic of New Africa's 11's freedom. Of course, they were convicted, and fortunately, all of them are out of prison today. But Chokwe organized around that. That incident motivated him to go back to law school. He completed law school at Wayne State University, and when he graduated, he went back and sued Wayne State University for discrimination against black students at that school, and he was able to win that lawsuit. That lawsuit came straight out of law school. He became one of the finest criminal defense attorneys in the United States of America, having such high-profile clients as Assata Shakur, Tupac Shakur, Mutulu Shakur. I guess he defended all the Shakurs. But he also defended, as you know, in Mississippi, and helped through his work and negotiations with the governor, was able to win the release of the Scott sisters, 2 sisters, who for robbery of $11 had double life sentences. And so but not only did Chokwe handle the high-profile cases, he handled the cases of everyday people in Mississippi. He represented Frito-Lay workers at the Frito-Lay plant there who were being discriminated against. He handled cases of common folk who were oftentimes charged unjustly in the state of Mississippi, Detroit, but around the country. Because of his skill, he was requested into work cases in California, New York, and Georgia, Michigan, throughout the United States. In 1984, Chokwe co-founded the building of a new organization that was very more activist than RNA, called it the New African People's Organization. And we formed an association, because I'm a member of that organization also. In 1990, we formed the Malcolm X grassroots movement. Chokwe, in 1988, moved to Mississippi from Detroit. And then when he moved there, after years of activism, many people mentioned that he should run for mayor. And that was something new. Electoral politics is something new for our organization. But we decided Chokwe should first run for city council. And after that decision was made, we formed a People's Assembly in his ward, and that People's Assembly also decided he should run for city council. They formed his agenda. They formed his platform. And they also, after he was elected, and when he was elected in 2009, they stayed in existence, and they held meetings periodically around educational policy, around economic policy, around development of the infrastructure in that ward, around things like youth development. And Chokwe got his direction from the community as to how he should vote. And it also got the community more engaged. We also had a wider plan of economic development, not only in Jackson, but throughout the state of Mississippi, particularly in black majority counties. And so we call this the Jackson Kush plan. And economic development, but also to get people engaged as we did in Ward 2. So that was part of why he ran for mayor, to extend and build and try to create more empowerment for our people, economic empowerment as well as political empowerment. And so when he ran for mayor, that was part of his platform. That was part of the vision of how he ran. And we were only able, while he was elected mayor, to do part of that plan. But our hope is, even though we don't have Chokwe as a mayor, that we're going to continue that momentum in Jackson. We're going to continue that momentum in Mississippi and, yes, throughout the South, to try to build economic cooperatives, to try to develop people's assemblies so our people can be more united and give more direction and have more control. Malcolm X talked about, as a black nationalist, that we should have control of our communities politically, economically, and socially. And that's what we're trying to, when I say we, the Malcolm X grassroots movement is trying to do today, in the spirit and the legacy of our brother Chokwe, our brother and our leader, Chokwe Lumumba.
Well, you gave a great bio background. It's a great historian that you are on your friend, the comrade brother Chokwe Lumumba. And there's so many things when you talk about him and his legacy and what he has done, which is incredible. That I was thinking about was, who are the successors of this man's legacy? Who are the ones to make sure that their ideas become reality? Because I was thinking about Dr. John Henry Clark when he said that you must bury the man and continue to plan. So do you have any successors, like actually people that we know by name, that will take on the work in Jackson and help implement some of these things around the country?
Well, Chokwe and his administration, and they're going to have an election for mayor, and I'm not sure that we're going to run anybody for mayor at this point. That's something that has to be discussed. But he had his chief of staff was Sister Sophia Mari, who's a professor of social work at Jackson State, previously a professor at Tougaloo College. Former city councilman of Detroit, Kwame Kenyatta, actually moved back to Mississippi after Chokwe was elected, and he began to serve in his administration. And he's committed to stay in Jackson and continue to work the vision Chokwe began. One of our leaders of Malcolm X grassroots movement, Kali Akuno, is organizing the Jackson Rising New Economies Conference in Jackson, Mississippi. And so you have those individuals, you have other members of our organization who are in Jackson, Mississippi to continue that work in Mississippi. So I would argue that those people, and there are several other people who are from the city, people he appointed, who I know will continue that vision and very much committed to that vision that he established. There were members like the brother who was fire chief and appointed fire chief, originally from Belzoni, a brother by the name of Willie Owens. He was very much involved in Chokwe's campaign for city council, and he was involved in the campaign for him for mayor, and he was active in People's Assemblies. I would see him when I visited Jackson and visited the People's Assembly. But I think Chokwe kind of believed, and I gave you names of individuals, his vision doesn't lie just in individuals or in an organization, but in common everyday people. One thing a lot of people don't know about Chokwe, who don't live in Jackson or didn't know him personally, he had a basketball program, an amateur basketball program called the Jackson Panthers. And some of the people I saw work on the campaign were young men who played basketball for him. And he tried to instill in them not only athletics, but certain values. So when I saw some of those guys when I met them when they were teenagers, and they were working on the campaign. So I think Chokwe felt like he was investing in them and developing them as leaders so they would be leaders in their community. Since he was an athlete and he loved basketball, he thought that was a vehicle he could help and train other people. Of course, Chokwe's son was one of those people, Chokwe Antar Lumumba, who's also an attorney now and was very effective working on his campaigns for city council and mayor. He's recently married, going to have a new child, married a sister named Ebony Lumumba now, who is teaching at Tougaloo College, about to get her PhD from the University of Mississippi. And so, there are a lot of young people there who are willing to take up the mantle. Chokwe's daughter, A.L.L, Lumumba, who also has a law degree from Howard University. She lives in New York now. I'm sure the Lumumba children, he has 3 children. His oldest is named Cam, Kamboma Tope. Cam, unfortunately, about 20 years ago, was shot and paralyzed from the waist down. But Chokwe described him as his hero because he liked the grace and the power and the love that Cam showed. He's not bitter even after being shot and paralyzed by brothers in the community. And that's one of the reasons why Chokwe was very much committed to, like us, beginning to organize in our own communities to be able to provide guidance to our children. One of the things I think that shouldn't be lost in terms of his program, I mentioned about the economic piece, but was about his vision around education. He very much believed, like people like Dr. Asa Hilliard, that unless we had an education that was culturally relevant, that our children would not achieve academically. And so one of the plans he was beginning to implement, even the week that he was passing, they were meeting with the head of the Board of Education. And, Mississippi's educational system in Jackson is reflective of that. It's on the low end of the nation's total poll in terms of our achievement in the educational system. So they were going to implement, and I know he had talked to my wife, myself, and others who were educators about coming in and helping them support the development of the transformation of that educational system in Jackson, Mississippi. So he was very much about youth development. And so his emphasis on working with youth and creating a whole new generation, I think Chokwe would hope, even though he thinks he knew the importance of leadership, that the people would be his successors, right?
Right.
And so because he invested in people, and that's what we should continue on, that same mission, even though, this sudden death is shot and hurts all of us personally and hurts me particularly. But I tell you the truth, I haven't got much rest since he passed because I'm trying to do so much. We have to keep that in balance also. But, it's I'm using his death as an inspiration to even tighten myself up, to be able to contribute more because, he invested a lot in me over the years also. So, that would be my answer to that question. There's a lot of individuals because one of the things we don't believe in, we didn't promote was we believed in collective leadership. We believe it has to be many leaders in our community, in our community and in our organizations. That even though we have powerful individuals like Brother Chokwe, who's very charismatic, very intelligent, very loving also, and willing to serve, we have to create multiple leaders if we're going to win.
I definitely agree with that. There's also so many things that come to my mind. I want to ask you because it's interesting because he had kids. Yeah, he was a widower. He lost his wife almost a little bit over 10 years ago, I believe.
Right.
Lydia, correct?
Right.
But he have kids. Do they feel the pressure, especially his son, to carry on his work? Do you think people are pressuring his son? I know he said he believes in the community or the people leading. Do you think people are putting that type of pressure on his son to try to take over what his father left out?
Chokwe's son, who's Chokwe Antar, I'm like a uncle to Chokwe. And Chokwe has always been a very intelligent, I'm speaking about the son now, and his daughter, Rukia. I'll just say both of them. They've always been intelligent, bright, talented people in their own right. Rukia, actually, when she was at Tougaloo, was Miss Tougaloo. And she took that post. The Lumumba family, one of the slogans in our organization is the family is a unit of struggle. And the Lumumba family represented that. You mentioned Nubia dying. When Nubia died, I went to the funeral. And Nubia and Chokwe are not from Jackson. But it just amazed me that, people were competing to be on her funeral program. Wow. You had two different choirs. You had several preachers. who wanted to get up there and say something. She was so well loved in that community. Tougaloo came out because when her daughter went to Tougaloo, she was very important. She was very essential in raising money for the school and being an active parent for Tougaloo College students. They are all organizers and powerhouses in their own right. The children were not only nurtured by that family, but they grew up in, we have a youth organization called the New African Scouts, New African Panthers. Tupac Shakur was actually part of the New African Panthers for a short period of time. And so we invested a lot in our children. And so they're leaders in their own right. If their father was alive, and I'm sure they were leaders. In fact, both of them were essential parts of his campaign. Rukia coordinated the social media for her father's campaign. Chokwe was one of the key people in the streets for both campaigns, for city council and for for to be the mayor. I don't think they have to feel like they have to take up their fathers, just replace their father. They have to continue to do what they've been doing because they've been active. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They've been active. They've been working. Rukia recently, I'm trying to remember, she spoke in Washington, D.C. at this major forum. After Katrina happened, it was Rukia who worked with Kevin Powell to organize Katrina on the Ground, where students across the country, across the United States, we had a massive effort to take students from during their spring break to work in the Gulf Coast and work in New Orleans. So they've been activists, and they do this because they've been raised that way, right? Mm-hmm. And they've never seen themselves. They're not like the type of children who ran off and did something else and came back. That's who they are. They've been involved in supporting this movement. They're kind of like my own daughter. My wife started an independent educational institution in Atlanta called Colombo Academic and Cultural Institute. It's a African-centered, culturally relevant school with a social justice curriculum, but the children are very strong academic achievers. Well, my daughter is now the co-director of that school, and so I kind of see them the same way. It's not like they're doing what they were raised to do, they're socialized to do. So they will continue to do what they're doing, and they've already doing great work, and we just support them. I think when Dr. Asa Hilliard passed, mm-hmm. somebody told me, because I teach at the same school, that now you have to fill his shoes. And I said, well, Asa had big shoes. He had a big foot. I'll put it that way. And several people have to continue the work they're doing to replace what Asa is doing, not just one person. So it won't be necessarily a succession, if you will, but it'll be them continuing the work they do. And if they continue the work they do, and we continue to reunite, and even just try to take it to a new level, inspired by our new ancestor, Chokwe Lumumba, we'll be able to continue his vision.
It's like Brother Chokwe, when I hear you talk about him, was a true, they call revolutionary brother, thinker, and doer. And I was just like, when he passed away, I was shocked as anybody. I had a chance to interview him several times concerning the Successors on my video program. I never met him in person, but I really had a lot of respect for who he was and what I heard about him. But I was just curious about, I know a lot of people on social media felt like he was killed, like he was poisoned or something like that, like echoes of Harold Washington. I look at the Al Jazeera tag of him being the most revolutionary mayor in America. Like, was it like a target? Like, it's like, was he under pressure? Because I look at all the things, the timing of his death. Like, when they come about the emergency manager situation, coming in to Jackson, like they did his hometown of Detroit. What is your take on how people are talking about, they feel like he was killed?
Well, our people certainly have, justification for having such thoughts. And so, there is in the National Council of Black Lawyers that Chokwe was a member of, is actually raising money because it's going to cost, I think, $15,000 to do the autopsy.
Right.
So money is being raised right now to do an autopsy, and we'll just wait and see what the results are. I don't want to make. You know how I am. I'm a historian, and I don't want to make accusations what I have in the evidence. And so, once we have that evidence, we can speak on it, and speak on whether there was foul play in my brother's death or not. And so, I'm trusting and following the leadership of the National Council of Black Lawyers. The family has consented to it. Because if it was true, we want to know. If he certainly was under a lot of stress. At the same time, none of us, thought that he would have died, and so it came as a shock to many of us. In fact, when he was in the hospital, they said that he was lucid. He was talking. When he first went to the hospital, he was having some problems that morning. And when he went in, he had conversations with people. He was checking on business. So he was aware enough and felt strong enough to do that. So we just wait and see what the results of the autopsy tells us. And I would support the effort of National Council of Black Lawyers. Again, an organization that Chokwe was a part of, helped build, and believed in. And supported him through, him running for city council and for mayor and many of the campaigns he was involved in. So, we'll support that effort. When I say we, I said, the close friends and families, comrades, as well as the organizations that Chokwe belonged to. We will support that effort. And at the same time, we're going to support the effort of the family to proudly memorialize him and to bring... to be able to celebrate his life, because we feel that is an important part of the healing process also.
So will the autopsy be done independent of the state? Like, it'll be like an independent?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be an independent autopsy done. The state didn't choose to do an autopsy. They didn't. They only do it if they have evidence of foul play, and and I guess in the spirit of Chokwe, because Chokwe believed in self-determination. So given our right to self-determination, I think I support the National Council of Black Lawyers' efforts to get an independent autopsy done. And so we'll know for sure, and we'll have evidence based upon somebody that we trust. And so they're leading that effort, and I'm trusting them on that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, people think this is, like, far-fetched, but, the church Senate committee hearings of the 70s proved that the CIA had capabilities of inducing heart attacks with their weaponry, and also Hugo Chavez talked about the CIA or the government, U.S. government giving him cancer. You look at Kwame Ture, look at Frantz Fanon.
Well, we know that there's evidence that they tried to kill several times
Malcolm X?
Fidel Castro.
Oh, Fidel Castro.
Castro. And Malcolm X was poisoned when he was in Egypt. And even though he had beef with the Nation of Islam at that time, the Nation of Islam didn't have the capacity to poison him while he's a guest of the state of the president of Egypt. So no, it's not far-fetched. That's what I said.
Yasser Arafat recently. Last 10, 12 years.
I can't. There was a plan, I know, to do some foul play to him. I can't remember if it was to assassinate him or not. But the reality is that, like I said, there's historical evidence that will let us know that it's not far-fetched. There's been, there have been public discussions when Gaddafi was alive about whether he should be killed or not. It was discussed on the news.
Right.
On shows like Nightline. So, they could, or should they kill Saddam Hussein? And, so it's not, it shouldn't be, people have grounds to believe, if the society would experiment with black men by giving them syphilis. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's that there's people in who are in high places who make decisions. And of course, some people would have seen what Chokwe was doing as a threat. threat economically, threat politically, and otherwise. So, and when Chokwe was elected, I saw things. Chokwe became one of the most vilified men in America to some sectors. He was loved by several of us. He's loved by several people. And if you met Chokwe, it's hard not to like him. Okay, but I know how Jeremiah Wright was being vilified. Chokwe was right alongside of Jeremiah Wright. If you looked at certain conservative bloggers, if you looked at certain right-wingers in the United States of America. And then there are people in high places who may have seen him as a threat also. So I don't, when people, the talk we've been seeing and the suspicion of black folks, that's a natural suspicion that people we should have, and we should look at that. A lot of times people think we're being paranoid. Yeah, we might be paranoid, but people are trying to kill us.
Right, been proven, right. It's the track record. Yeah. And I was getting conflicting reports, though. I was looking at the news. They saying he was sick one minute, then he said, he wasn't sick, and they say he had cancer before, years ago. I mean, it's like they conflicted because people, like, they're saying that he was sick last week or he had a cold. But that mean having a cold doesn't mean you're going to die of a heart attack. So I'm kind of confused by how the media is putting this stuff out there and all the different stories and narratives.
Well, I will say this about my brother. He worked very hard, and he would sometimes, because he worked very hard for his people, sometimes not be as diligent about eating, about getting rest, and stuff like that. So, I mean, there are some people who work themselves to that point. I wasn't in Jackson. I'm actually, as we're doing this interview, in California right now, and I'm going to be in Jackson till next week. And so I'm just going to wait until we hear those results to find out really what happened. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. That's wise.
Yeah. I'll wait to hear those results and find out what was happening. That
makes sense. I want to move on to your book. This is a book that should win all the major book awards, in my opinion. One of the greatest books ever written on the black experience in America. It's called We Will Shoot Back, which deals with the little-known story of the armed liberation struggle of the Mississippi Freedom Movement. And, this year is a very special anniversary year. This marks the 50th year of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party and its ideas, and also Freedom Summer, which get black folks registered to vote down in Mississippi. And I was thinking about Lumumba, how he probably would represent somebody that Fannie Lou Hamer, no people would have been proud of representing them in the state. And
most definitely, it was important. At his inauguration, one of the people who spoke at the inauguration was Mrs. Merle Evers. And she talked about how after Chokwe was elected, she felt she could finally return to Jackson. So she might return there and live.
Wow.
She was so inspired by Chokwe's vision. And so, yes, the Chokwe described himself as a Fannie Lou Hamer Democrat. In fact, he was, years ago, even before he decided to run for office, he had a case in Holmes County. And in Holmes County, you still had the Freedom Democratic Party operating. So he joined the Freedom Democratic Party of Holmes County as a member. And then when he ran for office, and he ran in the Democratic primary, someone raised that he wasn't a Democrat. He said, yes, I'm not a member of the racist Democratic Party of Mississippi. I'm a member of the Freedom Democratic Party of Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. So, yeah, he saw himself as continuing the legacy of Medgar Evers, Fannie Lou Hamer, people I talk about in my book, like Hartman Turnbull, C.O. Chin, Vernon Damer. He saw himself in that light, that legacy of representing the legacy of those freedom fighters. You mentioned my book, and one of the things I want to note is the cover photo for my book actually was provided to me by Chokwe Lumumba. And so Chokwe very much is one of the people responsible for my book, because It's usually the Lumumba family I studied with when I came to Mississippi, and that would be my base of operations from which I did my research. He actually provided a lot of the leads and the contacts for me to get that book produced. And so, yeah, he's very much a part. If you read the acknowledgement section, the Lumumba family, Chokwe and his wife Nubia are mentioned in the acknowledgement section of my book because they very much were a part of helping me complete it and getting it done. And they're very much an important part, even though Nubia was born in D.C. and Chokwe was born in Detroit. They're very much a part of the Mississippi Freedom Legacy. And I think they should always be saluted in that fashion.
Oh, most definitely. And I was trying to figure out, like, if you were describing Lumumba, who would he closely resemble in a Black history point of view? What ancestors we be close to line with?
Malcolm X. He comes out of the Malcolm generation, yeah. And I would even say Martin Luther King because, again, he becomes more politically active after the assassination of King. But Malcolm, I think, Chokwe always said, Malcolm wanted to be an attorney. If you remember Malcolm's story when he was in junior high, but his teacher told him that, it wasn't realistic for...
Dr. Umoja, can you speak up a little bit? You kind of come in muffled.
I said Malcolm wanted to be an attorney, right, when he was in junior high school. But then his teacher in junior high school told him it wasn't realistic for an N-word child to be a attorney or a doctor. And so Chokwe always said he wanted to be the attorney that Malcolm would have been. And so he saw himself as following in that legacy. He believed in what he called the Malcolm X Doctrine as a person who was a new African, that we should organize upon our land, and then we should, organize as he was trying to do economic cooperatives, other institutions. And then if we decided we're going to be independent, then we should be able to take a vote and, we'll call a plebiscite and declare our independence and our right to govern ourselves. So he believed in Malcolm's principles of self-determination, self-defense, and self-respect. Even the fact that he changed his name to Lumumba, recognizing Malcolm's notion of Black people beginning to embrace African culture. Malcolm talked about that in the last year of his life, that we should embrace the culture of Africa. We should return to Africa, spiritually and culturally, and that's what Chokwe Lumumba tried to do. So he very much followed in the footsteps of Malcolm. As the attorney Malcolm would have been, the political leader Malcolm would have been. As Malcolm tried to become more politically creative, that's what Chokwe was. Chokwe never said, and some people in the media get it twisted, because they said he moved to the mainstream. No, he was just using opportunities within the system to help further our agenda for self-determination. And so he always said he was still a revolutionary. He was still a new African. He still included his speeches with Free the Land. But at the same time, he was about building unity. And even as a mayor of Jackson, in a city that was 80% Black, he wasn't racially exclusive. He was trying to work with every element of that community. But he also recognized that 80% was Black, and he had to service that community, particularly poor Black folks in Jackson, Mississippi. So, but Malcolm X would be the personality, historic personality. I think that Chokwe would be most connected to. That would be the ancestor. And now we have to think about him as an ancestor, and his name has to go up in our libation, and his name and his memory has to be institutionalized. And, somebody who studies our history and helps to document it, I'm going to be one to try to help document his and make sure we know our children, our grandchildren know who Chokwe Lumumba was. And with his words, his vision, his message are there to be for us to build on.
I'm glad you read my mind, because I was thinking about you be the perfect biographer for Brother Chokwe. He never wrote a book, right? He never wrote a book about his life.
He wrote several articles, but not a book. In fact, he wanted to write a book about the trial he had in New York in the early 1980s that he defended. He won an acquittal for Brother Bilal Sunni Ali. Mm-hmm. But in that trial, brother who's now a political prisoner, Sekou Odinga, was convicted, and he thought that Sekou Odinga was a hero. Sekou Odinga, if you're a listening audience, don't know, he was grew up in New York. He had went to prison while he was a young person, but he had started learning about Malcolm X. When he got out of prison, him and his friend Lumumba, they joined Malcolm's organization, the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Lumumba's father was a friend of Malcolm X, and after Malcolm was assassinated, they eventually joined and helped form the New York Black Panther Party. And you know the case of the New York 21, that's when Afeni Shakur, who was Tupac's mom, and several of the leaders of the Panthers were arrested. They tried to arrest Sekou Odinga. He went underground, eventually left the United States, went to North Africa, Algeria. He actually is accused by the U.S. government of fighting in Angola and Namibia with the South African Liberation Forces. He learned military skills when he was there. He returned to the United States and helped organize the Black Liberation Army. He was one of the people who was accused of freeing Sister Assata Shakur from the penitentiary. Him and Mutulu Shakur, who was against Tupac's stepfather, accused of freeing Assata Shakur from prison. Sekou was actually arrested in October of 1981, and there was a gun battle between him and New York police, and he's now serving time for that gun battle. And he also served time for stuff like freeing Sister Assata Shakur. They said that they were taking money from U.S. financial institutions, giving that money to projects in the Black community, and also the liberation movements in Africa. Sekou Chokwe thought was a freedom fighter. In another context, the things he was accused of, that might have been the same thing that George Washington was accused of when George Washington was fighting to get this country from the British, right? Mm-hmm. And so Chokwe saw him as a freedom fighter, and he wanted to write a book to talk about Sekou Odinga and others as freedom fighters. He never got an opportunity to write that book. Biography of Chokwe would probably be on my agenda. The first thing I want to do is get a collection of his speeches, his writings, and to do a collective, with the family's permission. I haven't talked to his children about this yet, but to do collective works, the message of Chokwe Lumumba. I have to think of what will be the title of it. We'll get that together. Hopefully come out very soon, because it shouldn't take that long to do. He has articles that he wrote a lot. He was a great writer. So we're going to get those writings, those speeches, pick the best ones, excerpts of the best ones. And just like we had Malcolm X speaks, so we'll have Chokwe speaks or something of that nature. Mm-hmm. We'll think of a good title to go along with that, and find somebody to help us publish it. Get that out, and maybe have the proceeds go to whatever project we feel that might be in the best interest of continuing his memory.
That's why I was looking at his mayoral slogan. He said, "One city, one aim, one destiny." Was he a Garveyite, so to speak?
Okay, well, Chokwe said this. He said that Malcolm, he and the RNA Republican in Africa, and Malcolm X grassroots movement. Of course, we see Malcolm X as like our political father, and the Queen Mother Moore is our political mother. Now, both Malcolm and Queen Mother Moore, Queen Mother Moore was a member of the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, Garvey's organization in Louisiana. Malcolm, both his parents were Garveyites, and of course, he would say that Elijah Muhammad was the Chokwe would always say that Elijah Muhammad, that Malcolm's our political father, and Elijah Muhammad's our political grandfather. And then Marcus Garvey is our great-grandfather. Mm-hmm. Our great-great-grandfather, right?
Right.
Our great-grandfather, excuse me. And so, yeah, he was a Garveyite in that sense. that he saw Garvey as, we come from a lineage that goes all the way back to Marcus Garvey, and maybe even earlier.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Mark Delaney.
You go back to Denmark, BC, and Nat Turner, and here come in those stuff too. So it comes from that political lineage. Probably goes to some nameless folk who came here from Africa and resisted when they first got over here off the ship, and maybe resisting on those ships, and maybe resisting on the coast. So it's a lineage that goes all the way back. So he would definitely saw us connected to Marcus Garvey. So he said, one city, one aim, one destiny, right? And the other slogan was, the people shall decide, because that was based upon us building a people's assembly in his ward first. And the plan is to build a people's assembly throughout the state, throughout the city of Jackson, and hopefully that extends as a model to other communities in Mississippi first, Black majority communities in Mississippi, and then throughout the South and other parts of the country.
So now, do you think that Lumumba could have became governor of Mississippi? I mean, if he became mayor of the capital city of Mississippi, could he have possibly became the governor, in your opinion?
That honestly wasn't in our plans, but who knows? Chokwe was 66, and we were even discussing back and forth whether we were going to run one more term. A lot of us were leaning toward him running for one more term, but after that, we didn't see that he would be participating in electoral politics anymore, because that's, for us, is not the ultimate. But it wouldn't say that somebody else couldn't be governor of Mississippi. But ultimately, we need to have the form of government we're even in, the way things are organized, to confine ourselves in these states as they are currently organized, and even these cities, isn't what we were ultimately thinking about. We're ultimately thinking about governing ourselves and having a society that's transformed. Maybe it can look different, Maybe it wouldn't be called Jackson no more. Maybe it's called Garvey or something.
Right.
Yeah, Garvey or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So our vision goes much beyond what this, what the U.S. Constitution says or has. We're looking beyond that. And these were only stepping stones.
Definitely. I was thinking about him going to the Deep South to get the type of support of Black people. And it reminds me of Garvey, too, because Garvey's strongest state in terms of his support for what he was doing was Louisiana. It was very Black.
And then they had several chapters in Bolivar County where Margaret Block lives.
Mm-hmm.
You
would never think that because of the media, the way they portray the South, the Deep South, with Black folks all scary and stuff. Scary Black people.
and that's all what my book is about. Challenge that notion. The Southerners, they don't, of course we had people who are scared and intimidated. Of course, yeah. But it doesn't show the resistance tradition of Black people. And so we want to balance that perspective out with who we really are, with both things.
I'm definitely going to have you on my show to talk about that. I really enjoy your book. It's much needed and should. If Lumumba was alive, I'm sure it would have been required reading in all the schools in Mississippi, or at least in Jackson. It should be a required
there were
text.
People who were part of who were connected to him. He never told me that himself. I'll be lying to say that. But there are people connected to that who wanted to see that and still want to see that happen. And there are educators, even who are outside of our group, who wanted to see that happen in Mississippi and also want to use me as a consultant. So we'll continue that work and try to push that forward.
And not just too, like the media coverage of this. He made the New York Times like his online edition, USA Today. What are your thoughts about the media coverage of Lumumba?
I'll tell you the truth, I haven't read a lot of it, so I can't really comment on it. I have read some of the alternative media. So somebody told me the New York Times had something that I haven't seen of. And I saw something pretty fair on MSNBC 2 nights ago. I forgot which show. They talked about him. One of the things they mentioned is how he was able to unite people. Now, I'll say before his death, some of the media coverage was, again, that he had, they tried to make, and I've heard one person who was even on a show with me tried to imply that he was a revolutionary once, but he left that to become involved in mainstream politics. And again, that's how, Malcolm has tried to be portrayed. Even Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther King was becoming more and more radical. He was
right.
But the king we get is not a king. We get a more sanitized king. So I'm kind of committed to make sure that Chokwe's vision is not lost in this, and what he was really about is not lost. That people try to trick us and say, well, you really shouldn't be involved in revolutionary stuff. You should be involved in this mainstream stuff. And Chokwe was in the lion's den, there's no doubt. But he didn't back down from what he was. And he tried to, but he did try to not be so far out there that people couldn't hear him. And he didn't try to be so far out there. He couldn't try to work with a coalition of people around a just cause. And so it was interesting to me that after he was elected, that the Jackson newspapers said that Chokwe's trying to get a budget together in the city of Jackson was the most transparent process that they had ever seen. It was interesting to me that then they began to say, well, wow, this man is trying to do what he said he was trying to do when he came in. I think they were sometimes not only his charisma, but his character, they were a little bit overwhelmed by it because they hadn't seen that. He wasn't like the usual greasy type guy who ends up in office
right.
and is corrupt or just turns his back on his folks. They raised the water rates in Jackson because the infrastructure is so terrible there. But then he still made provisions for people who couldn't pay for it, so they wouldn't be hurt by it. There was still a fund set aside to help them pay for their their water obligations. And so he wasn't going to harm the average person. He's still looking out for their interests.
Yeah, that would make him a threat to me, man. At 66 years old, it's like the boy. I mean, the older he got, it's like the more radical or progressive he became and more determined. And that made him a threat against the system. So, it could lead one to conclude that some foul play was involved, but we'll wait until the autopsy results come in, of course. But in closing thoughts, I want to thank you once again for sharing such important time and, valuable insight about your fallen comrade, and we lift him up in spirit. And I just want to get any closing remarks or thoughts from you, if possible.
Well, my closing thought, Chokwe used to say, he used to tell us, the activists, he said, if you don't love the people, you will ultimately betray them. And so we got to, learn to love each other. I oftentimes tell people, I know my people got problems. My family got problems. We got contradictions, but we still love each other in spite of that. And Chokwe would instruct us to have that same type of love for our folks. We know we got challenges, we got issues. We got to love ourselves, love our people. And I would even go beyond that, say we got to respect our people. And so if you take anything from his life, learn to love our people, learn to love people in general. But, if you can't love your people, you can't love yourself to start with. We got to begin to love and then begin. Now, Chokwe took that love to doing, not just vocalizing my love. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to use my life as an example, and I'm going to work hard to make my community better. And so if you take anything from Chokwe Lumumba, take that. And love for Chokwe would mean doing stuff for people, and that's how I'm going to invest my money. That's he was on that type of a program. So I would encourage people to also, if you're in the vicinity of Jackson, to come there for his memorial. That's next Saturday, March the 8th, and Jackson, Mississippi will be at the Convention Center at 11 a.m. in the morning. Also from May 2nd through 4th, come to the Jackson Rising New Economies Conference that will be building on his economic vision. And so we ask you to come and support those efforts.
Well, thank you, Dr. Umoja, for taking such valuable time out your morning to talk with us In the words of the great Douglas, we love you madly, and keep on producing and producing. Keep on pushing and producing, excuse me.
All right, keep on pushing, and thanks for doing what you're doing, Brother Ron. And you continue this vision also for the work you do.
Yes, sir, I appreciate it. I receive that. Take care.
Take care, and stay strong and free the land.